March 16, 2024. Learn with the City and County of Denver by Marcus Giavanni. When you understand how generative AI works, which is over here, this is Dr. Gwendolyn Stripling, PhD, just unbelievable individual. AI doesn't look at her as a woman, but as an entity of education. Something that allows everyone to learn how generative AI works, and then you have to figure out the rest of it or go further into the development and how it is. But you have to create layers and layers and layers and labels and labels and labels and phrases and other content blocks that are the throw before the toss. But this is going to be the good spot for these people here when you think about how every time the city and county of Denver posts something on the internet, we get alerted. Everybody has that ability. You can pinpoint it down to the individual of each government department and the person's name. And any news that comes out about that person, it'll pop up in your alerts. So many years ago, when we first started talking about all this kind of stuff, in 2006, and then the 2008 bust came, and the one that's coming next, right now, people I can't even get into the battle. That's not why we're here. We're here to understand the battle and what it means for artificial intelligence to be able to use our voices and our GPS and cell phone tower pings and pattern match it to the cloud content that we all create in each one of our own metaverses, which is part of the metaverse, which is the information stored on each and every single one of us in regards to what we say, what we can do, where we go, and who we're talking to, who we're emailing, texting. This holds true for every person that has an apparatus that records their voice or they speak into it, or they have conversations next to it. You could be at a McDonald's. Next time you're at McDonald's, they don't have to tell you. They're recording outside and inside using broadband sweep technology that can broadband find out what conversations are going on. Now, they personally don't get this information. It gets stored in the cloud. So if there's something that's going on with a certain thing that happened, law enforcement or private investigators can go in, and hell, even I can get a subpoena with content that you extracted off the internet to see if it's true or not. And since these are all politicians, they're all on a list. And they're on a list because they've sworn an oath to abide by the Constitution, which means that you can't break any laws, even if you think you're above the law because you enforce the law, but you don't enforce one law that would keep you from empowerment. And see, this is nothing against the Democrat organization of the United States, federal or state. What this is letting those people that might have been bullshitting all the big leaders of the Fed, who knows how far. I just know who the culprits are. I allege, based off information that I retrieve. And then when a judge can look at this information and go, okay, you know what? I'd like to know more about how this works. Really, Judge? I'm glad you said that, because now artificial intelligence picked up your voice, and because you were a judge, and you're presiding over each case, gives you absolute authority over each case. That's why most judges, when they find out that they're gonna do lockdown, put everybody's phones in bags and check them in. Nobody will be allowed to take a cell phone in. I can't believe that they haven't banned this years ago. But see, I was able to know the knowledge of that information and create, which would happen on February 6th, where I had filed 2 complaints. One was ignored, denied, but they didn't send it to me. AI notified me through some alerts that I had, and I filed another one. It went to Andrew Luxon. I knew Andrew Luxon was going to be the attorney before I, because I asked artificial intelligence out of all these judges who would be the best. Andrew Luxon. If you look at his experiences, I took those experiences and I turned them into meta tags. I wrote meta descriptions based off not him personally, but what a district judge would look at in order to make an informed decision that affects every single human and government and all departments in the city and county of Denver, the city and county of Denver. I've gotten letters and other means of communication from the attorney's office, city attorney's office, that it explains to me what they claim is to be how they're represented. And the city and county of Denver, whether it's capitalized or not capitalized, it's capitalized. And all caps, if you want to get real serious, into the actual look of a government. And see, what they do is they manipulate and come up with different storylines. Like they got this one, Learn with the city and county of Denver, just like that. Stops at Denver. And see, they can't do that because what they're doing is they're taking away all the other learning organizations and businesses that need money to be able to carry out the things that they need to know. Now, if you're going to learn the city and county of Denver, that needs to be learn the city and county of Denver. They'll have way more authority if they just changed it. I don't know what they're scared of. That's because their chief information officer, who got the job because she's a woman, she sure didn't get it because of her merits. And if I was in front of a judge, I'd show him the truth. And the judge would go, I'm going to have to concur with you, Giovanni. And you know what? Can you do that with me? Yes, sir. Let's go into my chamber. So there might be some trade secrets that we need to protect our government for. Ooh. That's how deep it is, folks. If you don't know it, don't say it. And that's why over here, when you look at all the content in regards to me trying to teach Denver, and the City and County of Denver LLC is a non-government platform run by the citizens of Denver based off the Spear Amendment. We're going to create billions of dollars of digital revenue, just like oil revenue coming into those states that have oil revenue royalties. Well, we've created digital, like blockchain, digital currency. But we need more and more people coming to the table so that they can build it. I've already built the basic structure of it. The domain names, the verification, the years and years of writing and being ignored, and only, people that say, all voices matter, and yet you see with their fake, all the stuff they do is just fake. You can't build rocket ships on fake, folks. You can't build relationships on fake. You can't bullshit your way to the top of reality on fake, biased, bullshit content on people that have an agenda that can now be indexed instantly by the conversations and emails and text messages that they send. And if you don't have a cloud content, a cloud account, no matter how small it is, if you don't have a premium YouTube account on your top platforms that you have, Google knows, AI knows everything. If you got no money and you owe people money, but you barely can make it, it knows that. And so do the people know. But if you're sporting new cars and you got all this stuff and you're not paying, it knows that too. If you're telling everybody you're going to end homelessness like they have for the last 17 years, you got mayors that are talking that have lost all credibility. They don't know it yet because the people in their circles haven't told them yet, because they don't want to tell them, because they know when they do, they'll get fired instantly for not watching the backs. But I watched the backs of all these people. I got them. They did what they did. I don't believe they all knew what was even happening. So when I came along, and the one that told me was a very high person in the Democrat Party that was kind of shunned out. He's dead now. But this ain't about Democrat Party. This ain't about the Republican or any other non-platform identified whatever. It's about the citizens of Denver being able to control the metaverse. And I saw, because of my education level of being able to scan things, and when I say my education level, people don't think I'm allowed even at the table. But my meta tags blow away because I have the merits and the ability of many, many, many things. And if you only have the merits and ability of one thing and you think you're going to go talk about another thing, when another guy comes and he's got 20 rankings of industries that he's actually run and operated and battled in different genres of the manipulation of content that the bad actors do to stay in power. And so this has already been foretold, folks. Believe it. When you think about me and why I'm here, I should scare the out of everybody. Just because of my educational level, just because of the battles I battled. You think, God, how can a guy battle this much? You know what they say? Oh, where there's smoke, there's fire. Mm, mm. Not if it's circumvented smoke. See, this is what those people don't. They can't think beyond that phrase. I've heard that so much. Well, where there's smoke, there's fire. Yeah, well, if I put my foot up your ass and see what kind of fire that makes. See, you can't talk like that. I don't talk like that because that just creates more hate. Because if you're saying that, it bothered you. If you had to say something like that, you lose. You lose in the whole conversation of doing the right thing. You can't call names. It doesn't get nowhere but call more names. You call me a name, I'm gonna call you a name. Well, if you call me a name, I'm gonna call you a name. You're buttermilk. Oh yeah, well you're butterham. AI doesn't think that way, folks. It gets rid of those kind of conversations and steers it to the dark web, where all matter goes. That's not reliable, that's not verified, that's not put together with truth. And if you don't get it now, you ain't gonna get it. Hotel motel. I mean, and here it is, right here. I'm gonna let you listen to this lady, and you'll be able to tell for your own the mistakes that um, the city and county of Denver chief information officer, their whole entire team that I've indexed for many years. And the more and more they come up with titles to try to take away more things that they couldn't do if they had denver.gov. And so the more and more they manipulate the truth, the more and more they see their content and they're all high-fiving each other, yeah, not knowing that on another channel, on another search, they just solidified another conversation based on predetermined conversations that we knew a certain group of identifiers within the government would have in order to create this kind of content. And the only way that you can do this based off what this woman is about to speak. I say woman because she is a woman. She just happens to be a woman. Very smart. Reminds me of my mother. Just smart. Just come at it. The way she can articulate herself, the way she speaks English, everything. For me, as an English person, my ears, it hurts when I have to try to understand other people's language, and it hurts my ears because I don't understand it, and I wish I knew, I wish I could. But now I can just put it on my app, and then Google will just tell me why he's talking in real time, what he's saying. And then I can send another thing, he'll hear my voice, but it'll come out through my translate, and it'll get the job done. And so we become friends. We'll have a beer together. Go smoke a joint or something. And everybody's so down on marijuana. If I didn't have marijuana, folks, like anything else, it's bad for you. But to tell people who smoke marijuana, like they do alcohol, casually, by people that don't want it and don't think it should be in their neighborhood, we'll teach that to your kids. Your kids are the reflection of what you didn't teach them. Bottom line. What they see is what they turn into, God forbid. And so, these life experiences that I went through allowed me to be here. It allowed me to realize that I didn't have to get confrontational. I didn't have to become violent or say bad words to try to intimidate people that can't be intimidated because they got the power to do whatever you want, and they want to press those buttons because any normal person would get pissed off if you took their kids away for no reason. And since there's no one there around to really care about you, then the rest of the citizens go, well, he must have done it. Well, I've been fighting that my whole life. If I didn't have white parents, I'd be in prison for something right now. Guarantee you. But my pop was kind of a famous guy in Phoenix at the time. He adopted 7 children. That was big shit in the 60s. He was in the Air Force, you know. He was a badass Irishman. But we're not going to get into that. But what he did teach me is that equity is whatever we build. You want that hole dug and you want it done to your specs, do it yourself. If you don't know how to do it, don't want to do it, then find somebody that'll do it to your specs. But you control the specs. Once you have your specs, and you can't blame nobody if they come and screw it up. My dad was a reliability engineer. He taught school for it. They wanted him to go real big, but he had too many kids. He sacrificed a lot of things he could have done, man. I'm telling you, for what you see now in regards to computers. See, nobody knows because the media doesn't talk about anybody except what they try to control, and they're going to lose it. All these people on these 501(c)(3)s, everything. Everything that they say gets put into layers and layers and layers of labels and pattern match it. And what's going to be really good for an end user? Bullshit content or actual content? There'll be people that will want to read the bullshit content just to see how to recognize bullshit. But when you click on it, you've actually told artificial intelligence that page has enough authority for your attention. Then you get a little cake crumb attached to you, a little token. And then it follows you of everything you do, good, bad, or indifferent to that information that you've seen. And a lot of people, especially journalists, come out and they start using things like, oh, I'm going to use my microphone and audio, thinking they're really funny guys coming up with shit that we call these linguistic twisters. A linguistic twister is the one that'll constantly tell you, no, here's the facts. As soon as they say this stuff, AI will tell you what the facts are. And then they will index that individual. And then what happens is when these people when they look up their names and stuff that they've said, and they're not seen, and they're like, hey man, I'm being shadowed by YouTube and Google. And let me tell you something, folks. If Google and YouTube wanted you off their platform, they just block you. You're done. You won't even get on Google. You have to go to DuckDuckGo. And then good luck trying to get an app if you got to go to the Google store. This stuff's coming, folks. It's coming. And you better have a YouTube channel too. If you're on any platform of anything, and they won't tell you this because they can't. You have to find out by third parties. If I get my way, I would put a YouTube channel on every single one of my platforms. Right now, we get to share the cloud. We don't get to share the YouTube because they all have to have the same or separate identification numbers, IDs, channels, names. And so when you think about all this information, and you think about the large language models that people have to build for artificial intelligence to learn based off what we put into it, and then learn from what it gathers through voice indexing, and here it goes.
Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Generative AI. My name is Dr. Gwendolyn Strickland, and I am the Artificial Intelligence Technical Curriculum Developer here at Google Cloud. In this course, you learn to define generative AI, explain how generative AI works, describe generative AI model types, and describe generative AI applications. Generative AI is a type of artificial intelligence technology that can produce various types of content, including text, imagery, audio, and synthetic data. But what is artificial intelligence? Well, since we are going to explore generative artificial intelligence, let's provide a bit of context. So 2 very common questions asked are, what is artificial intelligence, and What is the difference between AI and machine learning? One way to think about it is that AI is a discipline, like physics, for example. AI is a branch of computer science that deals with the creation of intelligent agents, which are systems that can reason and learn and act autonomously. Essentially, AI has to do with the theory and methods to build machines that think and act like humans. In this discipline, we have machine learning, which is a subfield of AI. It is a program or system that trains a model from input data. The trained model can make useful predictions from new or never before seen data drawn from the same one used to train the model. Machine learning gives the computer the ability to learn without explicit programming. Two of the most common classes of machine learning models are unsupervised and supervised ML models. The key difference between the two is that with supervised models, we have labels. Labeled data is data that comes with a tag, like a name, a type, or a number. Unlabeled data is data that comes with no tag. This graph is an example of the sort of problem that a supervised model might try to solve. For example, let's say you are the owner of a restaurant. You have historical data of the bill amount and how much different people tipped based on order type, whether it was picked up or delivered. In supervised learning, the model learns from past examples to predict future values, and in this case, tips. So here the model uses the total bill amount to predict the future tip amount based on whether an order was picked up or delivered. This is an example of the sort of problem that an unsupervised model might try to solve. So here, you want to look at tenure and income and then group or cluster employees to see whether someone is on the fast track. Unsupervised problems are all about discovery, about looking at the raw data and seeing if it naturally falls into groups. Let's get a little deeper and show this graphically, as understanding these concepts are the foundation for your understanding of generative AI. In supervised learning, testing data values, or X, are input into the model. The model outputs a prediction and compares that prediction to the training data used to train the model. If the predicted test data values and actual training data values are far apart, that's called error. And the model tries to reduce this error until the predicted and actual values are closer together. This is a classic optimization problem. Now that we've explored the difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning, and supervised and unsupervised learning, let's briefly explore where deep learning fits as a subset of machine learning methods. While machine learning is a broad field that encompasses many different techniques, deep learning is a type of machine learning that uses artificial neural networks, allowing them to process more complex patterns than machine learning. Artificial neural networks are inspired by the human brain. They are made up of many interconnected nodes, or neurons, that can learn to perform tasks by processing data and making predictions. Deep learning models typically have many layers of neurons, which allows them to learn more complex patterns than traditional machine learning models. And neural networks can use both labeled and unlabeled data. This is called semi-supervised learning. In semi-supervised learning, a neural network is trained on a small amount of labeled data and a large amount of unlabeled data. The labeled data helps the neural network to learn the basic concepts of the task, while the unlabeled data helps the neural network to generalize to new examples. Now, we finally get to where generative AI fits into this AI discipline. Gen AI is a subset of deep learning, which means it uses artificial neural networks, can process both labeled and unlabeled data using supervised, unsupervised, and semi-supervised methods. Large language models are also a subset of deep learning. Deep learning models, or machine learning models in general, can be divided into two types: generative, and discriminative. A discriminative model is a type of model that is used to classify or predict labels for data points. Discriminative models are typically trained on a data set of labeled data points, and they learn the relationship between the features of the data points and the labels. Once a discriminative model is trained, it can be used to predict the label for new data points. A generative model generates new data instances based on a learned probability distribution of existing data. Thus, generative models generate new content. Take this example. Here, the discriminative model learns the conditional probability distribution, or the probability of y, our output, given x, our input, that this is a dog, and classifies it as a dog and not a cat. The generative model learns the joint probability distribution, or the probability of x and y, and predicts the conditional probability that this is a dog, and can then generate a picture of a dog. So to summarize, generative models can generate new data instances, while discriminative models discriminate between different kinds of data instances. The top image shows a traditional machine learning model which attempts to learn the relationship between the data and the label, or what you want to predict. The bottom image shows a generative AI model which attempts to learn patterns on content so that it can generate new content. A good way to distinguish what is Gen AI and what is not is shown in this illustration. It is not Gen AI when the output, or Y, or label, is a number or a class of, for example, spam or not spam, or a probability. It is Gen AI when the output is natural language, like speech or text, an image or audio, for example. Visualizing this mathematically would look like this. If you haven't seen this for a while, the y is equal to f of x equation calculates the dependent output of a process given different inputs. The y stands for the model output, the f embodies the function used in the calculation, and the x represents the input or inputs used for the formula. So the model output is a function of all the inputs. If the y is a number, like predicted sales, it is not Gen AI. If y is a sentence, like define sales, it is generative, as the question would elicit a text response. The response would be based on all the massive large data the model was already trained on. To summarize, at a high level, the traditional classical supervised and unsupervised learning process takes training code and label data to build a model. Depending on the use case or problem, the model can give you a prediction, it can classify something, or cluster something. We use this example to show you how much more robust the Gen AI process is. The Gen AI process can take training code, label data, and unlabeled data of all data types and build a foundation model. The foundation model can then generate new content. For example, text, code, images, audio, video, etc. We've come a long way from traditional programming to neural networks to generative models. In traditional programming, we used to have to hard code the rules for distinguishing a cat. The type, animal, legs, 4, ears, 2, fur, yes, legs, yarn, and catnip. In the wave of neural networks, we could give the network pictures of cats and dogs and ask, is this a cat? And it would predict a cat. In the generative wave, we, as users, can generate our own content, whether it be text, images, audio, video, etc. For example, models like PaLM, or Pathways Language Model, or Lambda, language model for dialogue applications, ingest very, very large data from multiple sources across the internet and build foundational language models we can use simply by asking a question, whether typing it into a prompt or verbally talking into the prompt itself. So when you ask it, what's a cat? It can give you everything it has learned about a cat. Now we come to our formal definition. What is generative AI? Gen AI is a type of artificial intelligence that creates new content based on what it has learned from existing content. The process of learning from existing content is called training and results in the creation of a statistical model. When given a prompt, Gen AI uses the model to predict what an expected response might be, and this generates new content. Essentially, it learns the underlying structure of the data and can then generate new samples that are similar to the data it was trained on. As previously mentioned, a generative language model can take what it has learned from the example it's been shown and create something entirely new based on that information. Large language models are one type of generative AI since they generate novel combinations of text in the form of natural sounding language. A generative image model takes an image as input and can output text, another image, or video. For example, under the output text, you can get visual question answering, while under output image, an image completion is generated. And under output video, animation is generated. A generative language model takes text as input and can output more text, an image, audio, or decisions. For example, under the output text, question answering is generated, and under output image, a video is generated. We've stated that generative language models learn about patterns in language through training data. Then, given some text, they predict what comes next. Thus, generative language models are pattern matching systems. They learn about patterns based on the data you provide. Here is an example. Based on things it's learned from its training data, it offers predictions of how to complete this sentence. I'm making a sandwich with peanut butter and jelly. Here is the same example using BARD, which is trained on a massive amount of text data and is able to communicate and generate human-like text in response to a wide range of prompts and questions. Here is another example. The meaning of life is, and BARD gives you a contextual answer and then shows the highest probability response. The power of generative AI comes from the use of transformers. Transformers produced the 2018 revolution in natural language processing. At a high level, a transformer model consists of an encoder and decoder. The encoder encodes the input sequence and passes it to the decoder, which learns how to decode the representation for a relevant task. In transformers, hallucinations are words or phrases that are generated by the model that are often nonsensical or grammatically incorrect. Hallucinations can be caused by a number of factors, including the model is not trained on enough data, or the model is trained on noisy or dirty data, or the model is not given enough context, or the model is not given enough constraints. Hallucinations can be a problem for transformers because they can make the output text difficult to understand. They can also make the model more likely to generate incorrect or misleading information. A prompt is a short piece of text that is given to the large language model as input, and it can be used to control the output of the model in a variety of ways. Prompt design is the process of creating a prompt that will generate the desired output from a large language model.
And we've been doing this for 17 years, folks. Trying to knock on doors, knocked on different colleges' doors that claimed that they were the best and given headaches to some of those professors. And so I knew it didn't really matter, but I had to knock on those doors just like I knock on all these other doors. You got a door knock. That's what emotion steers emotion and truth steers truth when you knock on the doors of people that you know aren't going to answer, are not going to help, or not going to do anything to justify or turn it around and blame you and destroy you for something that they could have just learned themselves as well and take us to the next level.
As previously mentioned, Gen AI depends a lot on the training data that you have fed into it. It analyzes the patterns and structures of the input data and thus learns. But with access to a browser-based prompt, you, the user, can generate your own content.
Boom, baby.
We've shown illustrations of the types of input based upon data.
This is all
Here
stored in the
are
cloud.
associated model types. Text-to-text. Text-to-text models take a natural language input and produces a text output. These models are trained to learn the mapping between a pair of text, e.g., for example, translation from one language to another. Text-to-image. Text-to-image models are trained on a large set of images, each captioned with a short text description. Diffusion is one method used to achieve this. Text-to-video and text-to-3D. Text-to-video models aim to generate a video representation from text input. The input text can be anything from a single sentence to a full script, and the output is in video that corresponds to the input text.